Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, we'll talk about Kingside Focal Points. Given the situation where the enemy king is castled kingside, many people feel that a kingside attack entails just tossing your pieces in the direction of the enemy king and hoping that something good happens. Naturally, this unscientific way of thinking has little to do with the master's plans during an actual game. To effectively attack an enemy monarch, the experienced player knows that there are 5 basic targets, or should we say focal points, to aim. And that would be the h7, g7, f7, g6, and the dark squared complex of f6, g7, and the h6 squares. Now, please note that this is in the perspective of white. To take on black's point of view, all we have to do is simply take the opposites of those target squares on white's side. And that would be the h2, g2, f2, g3, and now becomes the light squared complex of f3, g2, and the h3 squares. For the sake of making this lesson more simple to understand, let us take on white's point of view for the positions that we're going to analyze. Alright? First, let's take on an attack against the h7. The h7 square is an important one in that several white pieces can easily take aim in its direction. Here are some typical scenarios. First, in this position right here, a bishop on the b1 to h7 diagonal strikes terror into the heart of the h7 pawn. In fact, many openings feature this quote-unquote bishop on d3 kind of structure, like the Queen's Gambit, the French defense, to name a few. White's pressure against this h7 will bother black after a kingside advance. If black allows g2 to g4 and g5 at some point, this will force this knight, being the main defender of this h7 pawn, to move away. Another scenario is when a knight can jump to g5 and create some pressure on this h7 square or pawn. In this game, white gains a decisive advantage through a brilliant combination that will in fact splatter black's kingside. Now, can you find a brilliant move for white here? Well, congratulations if you saw the move knight takes d5. Opening this b2 to f6 diagonal. Of course, white can't just capture it with knight takes d5 because otherwise he'll get checkmated instantly because this h7 pawn will be hanging. So queen needs to take that knight on d5. And after bishop takes f6, this e7 which is hanging and the pawn now becomes undefended is just too much for black. Of course, a queen can also move to this b1 to h7 diagonal. Just like in this position, many times this lineup on that diagonal is very effective in creating pressure on the king side. In this game, after queen to d3 with a threat of queen h7 checkmate, forces black to part with a pawn, either by a move. How can you defend this one if you're playing black? Either by g6 or f5. Either way, g6 or f5 would fall to some pawns right there. g6 will make this h6 pawn fall, or f5 here will take this, make this e6 pawn fall, and one pawn up for white and no compensation for black. It's not just about the diagonal. White can even leap his queen from d1 or e2 to, h5 square and create some nasty threats in this h7 square right there. Just imagine this position looks scary for black, isn't it? And the pressure is really on. There's also another scenario where, a rook on h1 can become an awesome attacking piece if this h pawn especially disappears. In this position, do you think black should capture this free h4 pawn? Well, I don't think that's a good idea, since taking the pawn with bishop takes h4 allows queen to h5 attacking this bishop on h4, when any movement of this bishop will make this h7 checkmate, or should we say uh, fall after some point, and the position of black is actually worse. Many players, in fact, have been mated by an enemy queen moving to h7. Because of its accessibility, great care must be taken to defend this point. Next up, attack against the g7. Of the big three kingside squares, h7, g7, and f7, the g7 square is the hardest to reach. Threats are usually generated against g7 by placing a bishop in this a1 to g7 diagonal, and even by playing bishop to h6 at some point. Now, in this game right here, white just played bishop to h6, attacking this g7 square or pawn. And after that move, black can't just avoid the loss of an exchange, because g6 is pretty much forced, and this rook on f8 will fall. How much more when a queen placed on, in this c3, and diagonal going to this g7, a very serious threat right there. The attacking queen can also rest in this diagonal, just like in this game. When paired, especially with a very strong bishop on c4, controlling this f7, another one weakness right here. In this game, black can't just avoid checkmate. Of course, he can't play f6, right? Because that will expose his king. So, imagine how this pair, open bishops and the queen, and dominating this diagonal right here on the deck squared, cost black a lot in this position. If the king on g4 is combined with a very strong bishop on this diagonal right here, imagine how the game is going to be dominated by white. Now, this leverage of powers will cause black some pawn structure damages most of the time, because after this move, black can just play knight f6, and white will just capture that knight on f6. And in fact, this f6 move or this g6 move is some kind of force, and still the pawn structure for black is simply broken. I just wanted to add, do you know that though g7 is usually difficult to reach, an attack against it tends to be deadlier than similar attacks against the f7 and the h7 squares? Now, the reason for this is pretty straightforward. If, for example, you place the king on this castled position right here on g8, and the capture on h7 has been taken place. Of course, after the queen takes h7, this will make this king move to f8 and run, right? Now, on the other hand, if we have another situation right here, a move like queen takes f7 allows king h8 in this kind of position, making the enemy king live to rule another day, so to speak. However, if the pawn or the square on g7 falls, all right, a check by queen takes g7 will most likely end the game on the spot, because the f8 and the h8 squares are in fact covered. Now, my point is this: the g7 square being undermined is more dangerous than those that are in f7 and h7 squares. Next, attack against f7. The f7 square is a favorite knockout target for opening punches, since, before castling, it is the only protected by the king, right? This means that a simple developing move like the bishop to c4 would instantly create some pressure against it. For example, in some common openings, Ruy Lopez, Scotch, and, a bishop to c4 would instantly put some pressure on that pawn. Other pieces, in fact, can find its way to f7, but this is the most straightforward right here. Now, let's go to some scenarios with this pressure creating to this f7 square or pawn. Now, just like I've said, other pieces can also find their way to f7 with relative ease. For example, a queen can, jump to f3, can jump to h5, and even b3 in this position right here, and create a double threat of queen takes b7 and bishop takes f7, especially if there's no bishop present in the c8, or the bishop in there has already been developed. So imagine, make yourself familiar with this kind of setup. In this game, an open f file also gives white rooks instant access to f7. He does this by advancing his f2 pawn to f4 and aims to, the idea of exchanging this pawn and this e5, right? This plan will also be combined by playing queen to h5 at some point and doubling his rooks on this f diagonal, and in fact creating a lot of pressure on black's king side. Another way to prick the f7 square is through a knight jump from f3 to g5. In the previous example or positions, we have seen how this knight can threaten this, h7 pawn or square. But also, a knight jump to g5 will also create pressure on the f7 pawn or square. Now, in this position, the double threat against this h7 and f7 seals black's fate. If, for example, h6 has been played, now, when considerable material losses can't be avoided, of course, this pawn will fall, right? Next, let's go over to the next attack against g6. This square often becomes weak after black defends the h7 with a pawn move of h6. Alright? If black's pawn, should we say the f pawn, has also been removed whereas already advanced, then the g6 square can turn into a hole that the entire white's army feasts over. Now, this game features white's knight, the queen, and the c2 bishop all having to dominate or have access into this weakness in this g6 square. And this will put heavy pressure on black's king security. A very similar but even more deadly combination can be seen in this game. Black has just taken the initiative in the center with central pawns by playing e5. Now, but he missed white's pretty idea to weaken the g6 square. Can you guess the brilliant move by white here? Well, you are a genius if you saw the move queen takes h7. White sacrifices on h7 in order to weaken the g6 square. If, for example, knight takes h7, which is actually a forced move, bishop takes h7 check, king has to move to h8, and knight to g6 ends in checkmate. And lastly, attack against dark squared complex on f6, g7, and the h6. Now, so this one's pretty simple. When black fianchettos or fianchettos his bishop by playing g6 and then bishop to g7 and followed by this castling, the squares on f6 actually, g7 and the h6 have been potentially weakened. Though this potential, so to speak, is often never realized, an experienced player is always aware of it from both sides of the board. Since the fianchettoed bishop is the main defender of this f6, h6 diagonals, or dark square should we say, the attacker often goes out of his way to trade it off. The most common way to do this is by playing bishop to h6 at some point. And that happens when white plays bishop to e3 and queen to d2, right? White prepared for this bishop move by this development, and black must accept this trade after bishop to h6, because otherwise, if the rook, especially if not been moved from this f8 square, is pretty much forced for black to exchange this bishop. And this rook has to move somewhere, and this bishop exchange will occur by force. Now, once this bishop are exchanged, for example in this position, white's pieces may suddenly have easy access to this f7, f6, g7, and the h6 squares. In this position, White's queen has already taken up residence on the weakened h6 square. Now, f6 pawn move completes the occupation of Black's kingside dark square, and checkmate can't be avoided in the next move. Turning f6 into a hole causes Black many problems. One of the most common is when a knight can safely land in there. In this game, White just played knight g4 to f6 check. This forces Black's king to step into the painful a1 to a8, or should we say h8 diagonal. And if that happens, unless Black offers to give up his queen, right? And after this check right here on f6, king has to move in this dark squared, very, very bad diagonal. And after knight to d7, discovered check, king move, and this knight will fall. So this is a very strong diagonal to dominate right there, and that will do it in our kingside focal points. I hope you learned a lot from these fundamental scenarios in the kingside. If you do, don't forget to hit like and subscribe button on this channel, and finally apply what you learned from these lessons.
Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.